Hey everyone, this is my part 2 video on tips and tricks using Azure Data Factory. If you haven't seen the first part, click the link up in the top above, and so you can see my first 5 tips on using Azure Data Factory. If you're new, I'm Riz Ang, a data engineer specializing in Microsoft Azure. And if you like videos like data engineering and Azure, hit that like button and subscribe for videos like this. Alright, part 2 video, straight into it. Tip number 6, use Webhook for synchronous or two-way requests. I have a Webhook activity here that is currently calling a logic app that will resume or pause a Synapse SQL pool and wait until Synapse SQL pool is completely turned on or turned off. When I say turn on, I mean online. Turn off, I mean pause. Now, there used to be another one called web request here. So if you look at under general, there's a web request. Now, these web requests can be also used to do the same thing that I just mentioned, to resume and pause and send an API call. But web request is one way, so it's more like a fire and forget. So whereas webhook is you fire and it waits until it gets a response back, unless you set a timeout with it. Now, obviously, apparently, webhook has a bit of limitations that I think it's only able to send post API method, and I believe there is no it's not able to send data factory link services, and I believe under web requests you can send both dataset and link service as part of payload, but not in webhook. Tip number 7, if you want to alert an email when your data factory pipelines fail, then you can use this feature under monitor and alerts and metrics in Data Factory. You can set a new alert rule. Yeah. And just to quickly brief you what it's doing, which I've actually planned to do this in a separate video myself, is you basically set an alert rule. You set the severity, SAF 0 being the most critical, SAF 4 being the least critical, and you pick a Data Factory metric. Yeah, you could probably pick this one, failed pipeline run metrics, and then it will ask you to set what's the threshold in there, and also how often it checks, and you can configure notification, and eventually you can set something up for sending you an email or SMS. There you go, things like this. This is a good way if you have a simple Azure data platform and you only want alerting just from ADF. However, there is another way. You use Log Analytics Workspace, which captures logs for all kinds of Azure resources together in one place, which again I'll plan to put in a separate. Tip number 8, if you want to find out how much you spend on your ADF, then you should go to your Azure portal and find your resource group where Data Factory belongs, and you go to this cost management, cost analysis, and I would like to suggest you to check the view in invoice details by meter. Let me show you what it looks like. So the view, look at invoice details, and it will group by meter here. You can see here Data Factory has, at the moment I have 5 of them. If you have self-hosted runtime or SSIS runtime, you'll have some more. But this gives you a good idea how much you spend so far for that particular time. And just to give you an idea, cloud data movement, this is a copy activity DTU unit that's being used. I'll link down below what the actual some examples from Microsoft Docs as well, just to back it up. But yeah, cloud orchestration activity, this is basically how the DTU run by the activities as well. Monitoring is monitoring of the data pipelines run. Cloud pipeline activities, I think this is to do more about the actual activity boxes that you run. This is gets charged. And read and write operations, this is more about creating link services, create data sets, and creating pipelines. You get charged on that as well, a small amount. So this is a good way to understand your cost. Tip number 9, try to split your pipelines into different levels. When you are, for example, copying many tables from your data source into your sink or destination. And the reason I mention this is because, for example, here I have 2 different pipelines. One is called PL master, BYOD to ADL role, and there's a worker pipeline, which is called PL_worker, and then the same BYOD to ADL role. What it is doing is master will take some metadata which will send to the loop here for each, which give us all the details about the source and the sinks information, and it will be sent into the PL worker pipeline. Here you can see here there's some source schema, source item, columns, etc. I actually have a video about this, and just check out up there the other video that I mentioned, speak about this a bit more. Now the beauty about separating these 2 pipelines is that you can easily monitor and rerun a particular pipeline that failed, if it fails. What I mean by that is that I don't really have this running, but when you've triggered this, you will see the bit like this. There will be, you will see, if you have that structure, master and worker pipeline, or manager and worker pipeline, you will see that when you run the master here, look at the bottom here, and you run the master, there will be a lot of worker pipelines that's run after that, and you can pick and choose which one that you want to rerun. If you obviously trigger it, I'm debugging it, so I'm not able to do it. But if you are triggering it, yeah, you can rerun individual pipeline. Last tip or trick for today is use annotation, because it helps you to monitor or find your pipelines that you've triggered easier in monitoring. And the way you do that is interesting. So if you go to your pipeline, you click this property. Whoops, I probably block you there, but it's on the top right here. You have properties, and then you can see there's information here on your right, and at the bottom there's annotation. You can click new, and with that you can add something here, and you can actually add your parameter that you've set here as your source. I have this as my source table, and what that means is when we've triggered this pipeline, it's let's say it's copying something from here. I can actually, let me just go to triggered. I can see here that there's a column annotation, and I can click that one, and it gives me the value of from the parameter. And I was copying this budget code staging table, and I can actually go to annotation, and I can actually see that as well. So I can just filter it if I want to. There you go. And this could be useful for if you have a lot of activities and you want to sort of group and filter them in monitor easily, then annotation is the way to go. It helps me a lot. That's all for my part 2 tips and tricks on Azure Data Factory. Again, if you missed my part 1 video, link at the top, so check it out. Thanks very much for watching, and again, if you like videos like this, smash that like button, subscribe to my channel for more videos about data engineering and Microsoft Azure. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.